We're making a progress report only. We're not claiming any results yet. We've got some results to report. We've got some procedural results and organizational results of great importance to report. But we haven't done very much testing yet of the eco-toilets themselves. That lies in the future. So we don't have those reports. We can't give that to you. And finally, at the end of the program, in my talk, and again at the end of the program, we will be asking for your help, whether you can join us to make this program a success. And I'm particularly happy to find out that there are at least 10 Cape Towns, plus Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket, and I believe there's someone from Cohasset here. Is that correct? No.
Yes.
Okay, good. In any case, we may have others as well that I haven't seen on the list. The Eco-Toilet Project, I want to just very, very briefly sketch out what the Eco-Toilet Project is, in case there are some people who don't know what it is. Just very briefly. It's a simple project. It's a simple idea. We're planning to take 60 or 70 volunteers in Falmouth to install eco-toilets in their homes. We're giving them an incentive. It turns out to be about $5,300 toward the cost of doing so, but most of the people are going to have to pay something themselves to be volunteers in this program. We're going to be sampling the effluent from their septic tank for about a year, or maybe more, if necessary. We're going to require that any of the residuals, such as urine or the compost which comes out of composting toilets, must be removed by someone, either by the town itself to central locations, or by someone hired by the town to do it. That's all we're doing. We're trying to do this, and in a minute I'll tell you why we're trying to do this, what we're trying to accomplish. We differ from other demos, and I'll talk about that at the end. We differ from all the other demo projects around the world. We have a special situation in Falmouth for which we are trying to do this in a particular way. It differs from many of the other demonstration projects around the world in important respects. I just want to point out why. We've been very lucky in Falmouth. We've had 3 groups who have come together and are cooperating with one another in creating this project. And these 3 groups are very, very different in their attitudes and ways of thinking about the problem that we're facing. I'll mention first of all the environmentalists. Hilda and Earl are examples of that group, and I think Matt Patrick belongs in that group together, and to a great extent I myself. They're interested in saving the environment, and saving the world environment, and looking at things from a moral, ethical point of view. It's something that we need to do now. And this group has been pushing hard to get the project started, to get it going now. And they've been telling us over and over and over again, we've got to do this. We've got to do it to save the world. Not just for us in Falmouth, but to save the world. That is an extremely important message to get, but it is one that the Falmouth voters, in general, probably are less concerned with. But the Falmouth voters is another group. You will hear from Matt Patrick today. Is Matt here?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay, good. I hadn't seen you yet. You'll hear from Matt Patrick today how we got the voters on board. They're interested in they're interested in their wallets for the most part, and they're going to be following up. What can we tell them about how much it's going to cost them to do this, or whatever we're trying to get them to do? And then we have the demo project staff. Sia Karplus, and George Heufelder, and others who are actually doing the project themselves. They're actually performing the project themselves. They have a concern. They're interested in sustainability. They're interested in cost effectiveness. But more than anything else, they're interested in making certain that we do it right from the beginning. That when we put this project together, everything we do has to be done in such a way so that in the end, if it proves to be successful, if we can show that eco-toilets ought to be used in Falmouth to solve our problems, if we can show that it will cost less, and if we can get people to buy into it in the community, then it will be doable. Then the technological solutions, all the little T's have been crossed and all the little I's have been dotted, and we get it done right. Okay? All right, what are we trying to accomplish? Well, it's very simple. We're trying to establish the feasibility of eco-toilets as a technology suitable for use in Falmouth to meet TMDLs. As Mary Pat explained at the beginning, and as will be explained later, there are a number of different alternatives which we're looking at the same time. The Water Quality Management Committee is looking at many different alternatives. And they fit together, but eco-toilets is the one that our program is looking at and what we will be talking about today. And we want to establish that they are suitable. We want to do this within a time frame which extends no longer than 2 or 3 years. We want, by 2 or 3 years from now, we want to know the full answer to the project. And we are looking at it as, I'm using a term that Nick used, a whole package. We're trying to look at eco-toilets as a whole package, not just put them in the homes and make them work there, but also what do you do with the residuals? How do you get them, how do you manage the whole thing as a small package among the many larger packages that we might look at. Now, we have heard from the very beginning, I want to point out these criticisms that we've heard just to get them out on the table. I'm certain many of the people in the room have these criticisms of what we're trying to do. Because stating these criticisms, I want them to go to show what we're doing to overcome these criticisms. Eco-toilets cannot remove enough nitrogen. Some people say, well, we have to remove 100% of our nitrogen from many of our estuaries. Eco-toilets can't do that. So they're useless. Eco-toilets will be too expensive. Everybody knows that eco-toilets are more expensive to put in a house than conventional toilets. There's going to be more expense involved than for conventional toilets, especially in retrofits, and that's what we have on the Cape. We have mostly retrofits. So we know that people say, well, it's too expensive because it's going to cost so much to put them in. Also, what are we going to do about the residuals? How much is that going to cost? How much is the management going to cost? They're very skeptical that we can do it at a reasonable price. Other people say they're too new and risky. It's a new technology. Why are we taking on the risk of having the town do something which most of the makers of eco-toilets are small firms. They haven't been in business very many years. They're not used in the United States in many places. They haven't been used in the way we plan to use them anywhere in the United States, so far as I know. Why are we being the guinea pig? Why should we? And fourth, after everything's said and done, the local and state regulators are not going to approve eco-toilets for use in the town. What are you thinking of? And then the elephant. People are not going to use them. They're not going to accept them. They think that they're going to possibly reduce the price of their house if they put them in. They think, no, who's going to change their habits? Habits of years, where it's so easy just to flush and forget. Who's going to get people to change that? Well, so we hear these all the time. And the project has been set up to try to answer, as best we can, each one of these objections. To overcome criticisms and obstacles so that 2 or 3 years from now, we will know the answers to all those questions that people ask about them. The first one, we don't know how much eco-toilets can remove. We have an idea. We think it's going to be a great deal. We think it's going to be high, a level from the ground. How much they're going to remove from the house, from the wastewater flow from the house. But we're going to put them in, have them tested, and after testing for a year in each eco-toilet, after 2 or 3 years, after we've got all them in, after all the work, we're going to know how much nitrogen can be removed from a house in Falmouth with eco-toilets. We're going to know the answer to that question. And whatever it happens to be, high or low. We also, by installing eco-toilets in our houses, there's 60 or 7 toilets, we're going to have established the costs of putting them in and maintaining them. And while we're doing that, we're also going to be looking at the costs of setting up a procedure for managing the residuals. We will have an idea, at least, of how much that's going to cost. So we'll be able, after 2 or 3 years, to establish the life cycle cost of eco-toilets for comparison with other technologies. Because the cost of eco-toilets, it's not fair to compare the cost of installing eco-toilets as retrofits. How many? 5, okay. It's not fair to compare the cost of installing eco-toilets as retrofits in homes with comparing what it would cost to have a conventional toilet installed in your home. What you have to compare it with is what it would cost if you did something else with the wastewater, like, for example, put in a sewer. That's the thing you have to compare it with. Next, we're going to be, when we put in these eco-toilets in 70 homes eventually, we hope, we're going to be testing them under field conditions in individual homes. And we will know, after 3 years, 2 or 3 years, we will know the problems involved in doing it. There have turned out to be quite a number of problems in getting the program going. We've learned about them. We've also been able to take a look at all the demonstration projects which have been done around the world, elsewhere. The reports on them have given us a great deal of insight into what you ought not to do, how you do it right. So we are going to be learning from that. So we hope that by the time we get through with this program, we will be able to answer that, let's see what it looks like, answer the question, eco-toilets are too new and risky. They are a developing, fast developing technology. They are no longer as new as they were 5 and 10 years ago when people started testing them, or 10 or 15 years ago when people started testing them. They're fast developing, and we will know a lot about that when we get through it. As so far as regulation is concerned, it's greatly overstated. The difficulty of regulation is greatly overstated. I'll let Sia Karpos speak to that because we've made some nice, just recently, some nice steps in the direction of solving most of the regulatory problems having to do with installing eco-toilets in our homes. We still have to do some work on getting the regulatory changes made which make it possible for us to deal with the residuals. That's somewhat more difficult, but we have some time for that. After all, we won't have very many residuals from those 70 toilets to deal with in 3 years. What we're looking at is what you do when you install 1,000 toilets or 2,000 toilets, and 5 years from now, what are you going to do? We have time to deal with that. And it's changing. EPA is changing their ideas, the state is changing their ideas, things are moving. And this elephant in the room, getting the elephant to dance, getting the elephant to actually do something, is going to require enormous amounts of transparent publicity and dialogue, which we have not begun. I would like to say that almost all of the publicity and dialogue that has been done so far has been done either in this building itself or in connection with the activities of Hilda and Earl, who have worked for years to publicize what we're trying to do and are continuing to work. We have a lot of work to do on that, and we need to start doing it. But this is not what we have been doing so far. And it's been complained that we're not doing enough. I would like to say a couple of words about how this demo project differs in scope and in the participants from other projects. most of the projects done around, most of the demonstration projects we are familiar with around the world their scope is they use urban buildings and housing clusters for the most part. They usually, any particular project only tests a single type or maybe two types of eco-toilets, often in new construction. And the participants are chosen basically by the buildings that are chosen to be tested, and the cost is mainly paid by the project sponsor. We have a different model in Falmouth. I think it's just useful to know that we have a different model in Falmouth. We are, first of all, we're looking at individual homes and businesses throughout Falmouth, spread across the landscape. We hope to have 70 eventually. We have about 20 people who are going to be going in soon, and we hope to have 70 eventually or so. First of all, and secondly, we're testing all of the different types of eco-toilets which seem to us at this time to be pertinent to the Falmouth situation. That's why C was asking questions about, is one of these others pertinent, maybe. And thirdly, our participants are volunteers, and they have to share part of the cost of putting them in. So they have a good reason for wanting to make the thing work properly. They're going to give us feedback if it doesn't work, which will, however, be the kind of feedback you get when they say, well, we paid money, we're going to try to make this work. And they're going to be holding us to doing it properly. Our motivation is different in some ways from the motivations of most of the people around the world who have been doing demonstration projects. And I'll say it in one word. They are long-term sustainability plus third world health mostly. They're technology feasibility testing, and they're encouraging eventual worldwide adoption. That's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. In Falmouth, we have a much more circumscribed goal. It's frankly economic. We want to meet TMDL's at least cost, plus create some jobs and less disruption for ourselves. We want to remove nitrogen from our estuaries using eco-toilet technologies which are available today. We're not testing new technologies. We are putting into practice technologies that have already been tested elsewhere. And we want to prove that eco-toilets here and now in Falmouth, 3 to 10 years from now, can be a part of the fix. So we have a very focused local focus on our project, not a national focus. But we hope that what we do here has national meaning. We hope so. I've just about run out of time, I believe. Is that right? I just want to mention to you, you have it in your folder, but the plan for the day is to, first of all, get to know eco-toilets, and Hilda and Earl will be handling that and that. The available models and the ways of handling residuals, and you can see over there in the other room what those models look like at lunchtime. That's the second part of the lunch discussions. We will have discussions at lunch and at the same time tour of eco-toilet display, and Donna Marie will be talking about that. And then in the afternoon, we're going to have the eco-toilet demonstration project itself. Sia and George Hortfelder and Brian Dudley will be explaining to you what the eco-toilet project is doing and why it's doing it, how it's doing it. And then at the end of the day, a short section, I and Aaron Jackson from Cape Cod Commission will be talking about, suppose that a few years from now ETs prove out. How would they fit into the CWMPs, especially across town lines? And we'll be talking about that. And then finally, at the end of the day, a general discussion, which I hope will end up to be plenty of time for discussion. This is a workshop, remember that. At that discussion, let's talk together about this, okay?
Well, excuse me, I just wanted to emphasize that along with all of this, we need to conserve drinking water. We don't have extra drinking water to throw away in flushing toilets or in sewer systems. And so I just wanted to put that on your list of very important reasons why we're doing all this. We must conserve drinking water. Thank you.
Actually, I've heard you over the years, you have been telling us that again and again and again, and eco-toilets do save. They would save on water. They would leave some of the water for us to drink because they don't use it to flush.
That's right.
Thank you, Allison. Paul, quickly.
Paul Gabel, Administrator for the Factory Sewer Commission. I wanted to know if part of your testing program will include seasonally occupied homes to see what the system will operate after a dormant period.
Yes, it will. We don't know how many yet.
Yeah.
Okay, nope.
We have the vendors who can provide the toilets. We know how to put them in. We know what should be put in, and we can go from there. Where could these eco-toilets be used if we had that 75%? I'm just going to assume 75% for a minute. Where could they be used, under what circumstances, within the framework of the CWMP? We are constituted here today to make a first judgment as to what parts of town could we look at now. The committee has the money, has the task of bringing before the town a recommendation that this watershed or that watershed be the first place that we start implementing that idea that we're going to have a nitrogen reduction, necessary nitrogen reduction limit. How you do it is yours, but we have eco-toilets available at this time to do it. Where could we do that? Well, I just thought about the town, just without knowing anything further about the other projects which have been going on. There are several places in the town of Falmouth where you could use it. One is as a way of reducing the number of, reducing the problems that West Falmouth has with the wastewater treatment plant, putting more stuff in it. It has already been proposed that West Falmouth, part of West Falmouth should be sewered, because sewering part of West Falmouth would decrease the nitrogen going into West Falmouth Harbor enough so that they could accept some more from other sources without going over the limits. Well, we really don't want to do that. So we could put eco-toilets into maybe 25% more of the homes than that and get the same result. So that's one place you could do it. Another place would be Green Pond, perhaps. Green Pond, I believe the nitrogen reduction limit for Green Pond has been set by the TMDL. Is it 62% or 72%?
65.
65%? Okay, fine. At 75% removal, eco-toilets are a possible solution to that place instead of sewering. What about, let's say we've decided that we need to get some ponds. Almost any of the ponds you could use them. Did you have some other?
Well, no, I was just going to say, if some of the other demonstration projects work out,
That's the next step. You're getting ahead of yourself. So there are several places they could be used. And around towns in the rest of the Cape, you can think of a number of estuaries where they could be used, if you could get that amount of reduction. It could be used now, if you could do all the tests necessary. All right. Suppose the alternatives have come in, and there's an estuary where a combination of several of the alternatives has reduced, and you can ask SMAST to do a new TMDL for the area, and they come up with 75% instead of 100% after you've done a number of things. You could also use eco-toilets there. That would be a possibility. So this is where we're trying to go, in that direction, to find out where they could be used. A lot of questions have come up as to how we would get people to use them, and that should be discussed also. But at this moment, leaving that aside. Now, in the recent the draft CWMP, which was presented to the government, to MEPA and DEP, we got back a lot of comments. A lot of those comments said, and we're getting that from the Cape Cod Commission every day. The Cape Cod Commission is saying this to us. You need to cooperate with other estuaries. you need to start thinking about other estuaries as well as just with other towns where you have estuaries in common. You need to talk about that with them. You need to get together. Well, we have one big estuary in Falmouth, which has 3 towns, but 2 of them are the main ones. That's Mashpee and Falmouth and Walk-White Bay. We have more studies of Walk-White Bay done than any place else, practically in the country, about nitrogen. We know more about Walk-White Bay than almost any other place. We have now the new Walk-White Bay, the MEP study has been done for Walk-White Bay. It just came out recently. And look at this. It says, in the Walk-White Bay estuary, the rate at which those parts which are mostly in Falmouth are 72%. In the part that is in Mashpee, 95%. Mashpee, we just learned this in a recent meeting with Mashpee. Mashpee is already starting to deal with this problem. It already has a CWMP put forward to deal with the problem of Walk-White Bay and the estuaries around Walk-White Bay, all the other estuaries that they have there. And they have programs going. Short time. I want to take very short time because I want plenty of time for discussion. We say, in our CWMP as it now stands, we have said, we are not going to do anything or concern ourselves with Walk-White Bay until after we have done everything else west of there. 20, 30, 35 years before we start thinking about Walk-White Bay. I think that given the very great pressures which are on us, number one, to deal with other estuaries together with other towns, and the fact that Walk-White Bay, as opposed to what we thought 2 years ago, is not going to require as large an amount of nitrogen reduction as we thought it probably would. It's time we thought about Walk-White Bay as a place where we could apply other things besides sewering earlier than 2040 or something like that. So as a matter of fact, I'm writing something now to suggest this as a way in which we ought to proceed, but that's neither here nor there.
Matt is going to spend a few minutes kind of giving you the history of how this program came to be and his involvement with it and where the town is right now. Thank you, Matt.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming. I tried to think of what you might want to learn. What do you really want to know about the history? And I'm not sure people are interested in the history of how we came to be sitting here today. Is anybody interested in it?
Absolutely.
Well, Judy, thank you for that vote of confidence. These are just my own thoughts. Going back several years, probably 5 years ago, we realized in Falmouth that it was going to cost about $630 million to sewer East Falmouth to meet the TMDLs of the Mass Estuaries Project. And so I sat down with a pencil and paper and started doing some math and realized that we're talking $90,000 betterments, 20 years. It could be 30 years, so you stretch it out. You also might get a contribution from town taxpayers, forcing up everybody else's property taxes. I realized that there were also, besides the betterment fees, there were going to be one-time connection fees. That could be quite expensive. Each individual homeowner would have to pay for that. And then there would be yearly user fees. In Falmouth, the last time when I was a selectman, it was just take the water bill and times it times 3. And that's how we figured your sewer bill for the homes and the businesses that did have sewer. I realized that, as a state representative, East Falmouth was in my district, and I knew a lot of the people, and I knew that many of them would not be able to afford this kind of a betterment. and that they would be forced to either relocate or not pay their tax bills. I knew that many people in East Falmouth owned their homes only by virtue that they were passed down to them from their parents. You know, we think of people living on the Cape. I know the rest of Massachusetts thinks of us on the Cape as very fortunate, very wealthy homeowners who are just here enjoying the sun and the fun on the beaches. But in reality, something like 60% of the people who work here, work for a living, year-rounders, work in the service industry or retail trade. And if you'd be shocked to realize what that average income is for those folks. It's only about $20,000, $23,000 a year. It's incredibly low. And it takes two people working for a household just to sustain it. Even the nurses union, the Crittenden Foundation report said that it cost an average family of four in Cape Cod about $58,000 a year just to make ends meet. So I knew this was going to be problematic. So I also realized that there were no federal or state subsidies besides the 2% loan. If we get in under the wire, we could qualify for a 0% loan. But again, nobody was going to come to bail us out here. I also knew that our bays and estuaries were in drastic trouble. Years ago, I was a chairman of the Citizens for the Protection of Wacoit Bay, and we knew that nitrogen was impacting our bays and estuaries back in the 1980s. We were proposing sewering back then.